Welcome to Invest. We talk about investing, finance, and professional development. As the current time of 9:17 a.m. on the Eastern Time on the 7th day of February. Hope you guys have a great 2023 and also happy February so far. Ethereum code $1,638, up about 1.5% so far. On the over crypto market, as of the left side of the chart, you can see that clearly we are relatively green, but obviously we're still consolidating on a sideways fashion. With respect to Ethereum, we're basically bouncing between the walls of 1650 versus 1550 specifically. And on the equity front, you could see that we are kind of flat as well. We're not really doing much. SPY is currently down about 0.24% on the pre-market perspective. Nasdaq down 1%. Dow Jones down 0.33% so far. And what's really happening today? We know that the Jerome Powell speech is expected to happen and broadcasted later this afternoon on the East Coast or first thing in the morning on the West Coast. And I believe the timing for it is going to be sometimes around 1 p.m. on the Eastern Time. So we're still like hours away from now. And before we dive into technical, let's take a look at the news front, shall we, to see what's going on in our world today. And you can see that with respect to the overall verbiage, I would say across the spectrum is still more of a foreshadow type of perspective at the moment. This guy named Fed's Neil Karkari, does he look like he's wearing makeup for some reason? He looks kind of like, I don't know, his face looks a little bit like waxy. Maybe it's just like the Photoshop or something like that. It's not me, right? He looks a little bit like a plastic doll or something like that. Maybe his skin is so flawless that it looks like that, I guess, in a way. But that's not the point of the story. The point of this is basically he's talking about that the central bank or the Fed specifically has not made significant progress, right? Just think about that. Relatively speaking, basically 70% plus of the cash that's circulating in the world, U.S. dollars specifically, are have been printed in the last 2 years so far. So if we don't try to keep up the rate heights, inflation will get out of hand. Despite how it seems like it's been progressing nicely so far. But ultimately, what really needs to happen is we need to kind of fix up the economy in a more of a dramatic fashion rather than taking more of a glacier, progressive, incremental manner. And to do that, like, just think about it this way: like, most of the new money that's being circulated has been basically printed. So to basically take it back in, you need to kind of do some seismic changes to the economy, right? And by doing that, it will be higher tax rates, higher interest rates. The economy has to be booming for us to kind of rebalance so we don't depreciate the US dollar, technically meaning that we don't depreciate the power of the US economy as a whole. So that's something we have to kind of think about. And obviously, with respect to the market, we are slipping slightly, but I would say we're just consolidating. We're not really slipping per se. We are just bracing for the impact, I guess, in a way. And I think if respect, if Jerome Powell was to say something, dramatic or negative, we know that based on the technical front, we are quite elongated and extended. So we'll dive into that in a bit, right? And then all the other news, you could see that Hertz fourth quarter profit has bit its cost, comes down and travel rebounds. But this is again talking about the historical affectation on the travel season. And then other news, you could see that across the spectrum, it's just relatively more of a trivial news. And it seems like Ron Barron, another call on Tesla, could hit 15,000 a share by 2030. I mean, I'm not surprised if it does eventually. I am one of the big investors in Tesla, so um, more propellants for me. But ultimately, that has to get there logically. You cannot just like pump up all the way to one shot, right? So, yeah, it'll be interesting to read this article to see what they're doing, what he's specifically talking about, and the logics behind the growth. And then I'll talk about Adani. Adani is one of the largest financial institutions out in India, and they are in hot water at the moment with respect to a lot of speculatory scandals that there seems to be some fraudulent activity within Adani Group, and the exposure seems like so far is like 70 billion to 100 billion, but with respect to some of the derivatives and exotic products that they have, it can be as exposed to up to $800 billion, which is quite sizable and just crazy. So imagining they get wiped out, overnight, and that can drive a huge crash onto the market front. So it's something to think about. Okay. So before we dive into technical again, let's go to the BlackRock and ARK Invest reports. So it seems like BlackRock was sell day before today's speech. I guess I can understand their verbiage. And with respect to ARK Invest, it was more of a sell day, but more mixed in terms of the neutrality. So let's just dive into technical to see what's going on with respect to recording time of 9:23 a.m. on Eastern time. We are at 1640, right? Again, just consolidating at the level of 1650. At the moment on a daily, we are looking to kind of glide and consolidate. At the moment, with the 56 out of 70 at the going up to 60, so it's a little extended for my tasting. On a weekly front, you could see that we have been quite elongated, quite dragged up. With respect to the level of separation right now, it is quite sizable. So we're at the 54 out of 70 right now, looking to cross down eventually. So coming down to 40 out of 70 would be the next logical steps, right? So daily and weekly are little extended for my tasting. So just let you know that in terms of DCing around this level, it's not the most ideal, right? But on a monthly, if you believe in this long term, obviously monthly, it's not terrible because of the landing path that we are seeing clearly right now. So seems like we are bottoming out on a monthly perspective, but daily and weekly it needs to kind of fix over time. On the monthly for Bitcoin, you could see that same thing, right? Consolidate, gliding. On a weekly, large separation. We are 56 out of 70 with large separation between. On the daily, we are looking for some landing, but landing at 62. So it's a relatively elongated, extended path. It requires us to kind of complete this cross down on the weekly. So Bitcoin looks quite extended to be honest with you. So be aware, be careful with this. On the SPY front, with the 409, so let's take a look at this on a weekly and a daily. So it seems quite extended on the SPY front at 409. 418 was the resistance level that we have formed, basically matching with the level that we've had a while back in August on the 15th. And it seems like with respect to our level right now, we are looking to kind of eventually come down. We have already hit an apex. So coming down is actually more logical than going up from here. On a weekly, we are still forming a reverse head and shoulder pattern, So right now it is looking to kind of cross down to cool down. So this is just like the formations of the secondary shoulder that's being in progression right now. We can't just like go up in one shot like the escalator, right? We have to kind of come down before we sustain more momentum to go up from here. So what the play is going on right now today, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some sort of a dump later towards the afternoon as the speech progresses. And if we hear obviously more negative news, I would not be surprised if we see some sort of a crash later today. And I think with respect to the elongations that we're seeing across the spectrum, not just for the specific coins or specific stocks, but overall market. And NEO as well, you can see that we are a little bit extended on a daily and weekly. Compared to Tesla is even more extended. So you can see that daily we are up in the sky with a 74 out of 70. So this is not advisable to be kind of DCing at this moment right now, relative to NEO especially. All right, so I have a long day today, going to several different events, going to a gala, a mixer later today at 4, and then I have a dinner with a good friend of mine to talk strategy and work and stuff like that. So, but in the meantime, it will be still like back to back, for me, like that's how it is every single day. And I appreciate you for joining me again on this Tuesday morning. I cannot believe it's already Feb, and I cannot believe it's already 1 week in Feb, which is just eye-opening and eye-watering at the same time. Anyways, have a good day, and I'll check you in the next one. Take care. Bye.